On the day, my wife gave birth to the child of her terminally ill first love. My father.in.law and mother.in.law had 10 thugs stationed outside the delivery room. Even after the delivery, I never caused any trouble. My mother.in.law held my wife's hand and sighed. Emma, don't worry. As long as we're here, we won't let him get anywhere near you. Your dad even brought people to guard the hospital entrance. If he dares try to stop you from giving birth, we'll call the police. My wife, pale and weak, nodded slightly, but still instinctively glanced toward the elevator. What she saw was nothing but emptiness, and only then did she let out a sigh of relief. She couldn't understand it. All I wanted was to help her leave a legacy for her true love. Why couldn't I just understand her? Looking at the nurse holding the crying baby in her arms, she smiled contentedly. She thought that if I could visit her tomorrow, maybe she would forgive me for all our previous arguments. She'd even let me become the child's father. But what she didn't know was that I had just submitted my report to the United Nations. 7 days later, I would give up my nationality, become a stateless doctor, and never return. Chapter 1. The day Emma left the confinement center. I had just finished my shift at the hospital. As I approached the door, I could hear sounds of laughter and joy from inside. This child is so beautiful that her big eyes are definitely her father's best trait. My mother.in.law was happily playing with the baby in her arms. Then Michael came out of the kitchen with a steaming bowl of chicken soup. I made the soup myself. You're still weak, that you need to nourish your body. He sat beside Emma on the bed, gently feeding her, creating an atmosphere of warmth and family. My father.in.law was holding a rattle, laughing so hard his mouth couldn't close. This child is really likable, just like her father. Fortunately, it's not that silent Ryan. Otherwise, having a dad who's a doctor would be such a headache. My hand gripped the door handle tightly. I remembered when I first met my father.in.law. He patted me on the shoulder and said that being a doctor was an honor for the whole family, that it meant saving lives and healing the wounded. He also told me that he was once a doctor himself, and if it hadn't been for an injury from a medical dispute, he wouldn't have retired early. But now, he was saying that doctors didn't deserve a family. I had only taken a year off for further studies, and this family had already become completely intolerant of me. I lowered my head, bitterly tugging at the corners of my mouth. I had been married to Emma for 3 years. She had always said she didn't want children, and I, understanding that giving birth could be life-threatening, never pressured her. I still remembered the day I left for my studies abroad. She cried her eyes out, saying she would miss me. We had talked every day since, sharing our lives. Even our colleagues joked that despite being married for 3 years, we still acted like a young couple in love. But 1 month ago, when I finally took a leave to come back home, I found Emma with a big belly standing next to her first love. My thoughts were interrupted by Michael's voice. Ryan, when did you get back? Why are you just standing at the door? Hearing him, the others in the room also turned their attention toward the entrance. When my father.in.law saw the resignation letter in my hand, his frown deepened. How did I ever let you marry my daughter? What a disaster. Now you're quitting your job, but are you planning on living off us old folks? Is this how you're supposed to be a husband? My mother.in.law joined in the criticism. You quit your job? You couldn't even keep your golden job, and now you're asking what you're going to do? If you don't work, how will this family survive? Emma's health is fragile, and the baby needs money. Are you going to let the 3 of us starve? I couldn't help but find this amusing. Whoever's wife and child it is, it's their responsibility to support them. Ryan, what did you say? Don't you have any sense of responsibility? Emma finally couldn't take it anymore. With red eyes, she shouted at me, and in her agitation, she clutched her chest and coughed violently. If Michael hadn't saved me from the car accident 3 years ago, I would have died long ago. His parents both died, and now he's been diagnosed with terminal cancer that soon no one will remember him. Why do you always target him? Do you think I'm that dirty, vile woman in your heart? Michael looked at her with a heart full of pain, soothing her as he turned his gaze toward me. Ryan, you should say less. I know this is all my fault. I promise I'll never show up in your life again, but please don't let me affect your relationship with Emma, all right? I looked at the 4 of them united against me, and I felt even more amused. So this was what a real family looked like. Just then, Emma spoke up, her voice cold and stern. Ryan, my patience has limits. If you ever target Michael again, don't bother coming back to this house. If you want to stay married to me, you'd better be quiet. Next week, at the full-month celebration, I'll announce in front of our relatives and friends that you are the father of the child. Next week, I glanced at the baby, already fast asleep in the stroller. By then, I would be on my way abroad. But before I left, I didn't mind giving them an unforgettable surprise. Without changing my expression, I nodded. Okay. Chapter 2. After saying that, I didn't care about their reactions. I turned around and went straight back to the bedroom to pack my things. Since I had decided to leave for good, I didn't want to leave any trace behind. The laughter and joy from the living room filtered through the door, and my hands froze for a moment as I folded my clothes. Michael, I want to use your surname for this child. That way, even if he calls someone else Dad in the future, he'll always remember that you're his true father. Even though I couldn't see it with my own eyes, I could easily imagine the deep affection on Emma's face when she said this, and my heart was already torn apart, full of wounds. I suddenly thought about the day I rushed back home last month, still holding a souvenir for Emma that I had bought abroad. But when I reached the door, I saw Emma and Michael just back from a walk, hand in hand. While Emma's face was filled with fear, Michael looked at me confused, asking if I had come to the wrong door. I didn't say a word. My gaze was fixed on Emma's bulging pregnant belly. I had been away for 11 months, and yet my wife was pregnant. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't deceive myself into thinking that this child could be mine. It wasn't until Emma hurriedly stepped in front of Michael, introducing us. "This is my husband, Ryan," that I paused. I thought Michael would back off after hearing this, but instead, like the man of the house, he invited me to come in and sit. As we brushed past each other, he whispered, just loud enough for only us two to hear, "I heard you're quite a bit older than me. Then I'll call you Big Brother. Since the child in your wife's belly is mine." My chest burned with fury, and I couldn't hold back anymore. I punched him hard in the face. I completely lost my rationality. The longing from the 11 months I had been apart from Emma transformed into pure rage. If I had a knife in my hand, I might have actually killed this pair. The neighbors heard the commotion and called the police. We were all taken to the station, but since it was a domestic matter, the police couldn't interfere and let us return home. As soon as we arrived, my-in-laws rushing over after hearing the news, didn't ask a single question and immediately began yelling at me. They scolded me for causing such a scene and embarrassing them in front of the neighbors. They yelled at me for wasting all those years of education, that I should never have raised a hand against anyone. If anything happened, they would never let me off the hook. It turned out they had known about Emma and Michael all along, and had even supported their relationship. In just a year, Michael had become the perfect son-in-law in their eyes, while I had been kept in the dark. I felt nothing but bitterness, my heart heavy with pain. Emma shakily walked over to me, trying to take my hand and persuade me. "I never meant to betray you. Michael is in poor health, and the doctor says he only has 6 months to live. I couldn't bear to see him die without a legacy. I thought about talking to you about it before, but you were abroad, and I didn't want to trouble you or delay your studies, so I decided to wait until you came back to discuss it. If you're willing, could we raise this child together?" Having a child was such a huge decision, but it sounded so casual coming from her. I packed the last of my clothes into the suitcase just as my mother-in-law pushed the door open. She saw the suitcase at my feet, wearing a look of forced politeness. "Since you've been gone, I've let Michael sleep in your room. Now the study has been turned into a nursery. Tonight, you'll have to make do and sleep in the living room. Or you could stay at a hotel." I was truly exhausted and didn't have the energy to look for a hotel. I nodded, preparing to settle on the couch for the night. In the dead of night, the sound of a baby crying echoed from the bedroom. I rolled over, ready to put in earplugs, but then I heard Emma's complaint. "You need to do something about the baby, or he'll just keep crying. You're my baby, just take care of it. Let the kid cry a little longer. It helps with lung development." Emma lightly laughed and said, "You're so annoying." Then came the sounds of the bed creaking. I pulled the blanket over my head, trying hard to ignore those unbearable noises. But as soon as I closed my eyes, Emma's image from when she first confessed to me flashed in my mind. But she had been so pure and beautiful, with her heart and eyes filled only with me. But that version of her no longer belonged to me. Chapter 3. I slept through the night in a haze, and by dawn, I was already heading out with my suitcase. I went to the authorities to deregister my household registration and also handled the necessary procedures for leaving the country. Since I had government-approved documents, everything went quickly and the staff didn't ask too many questions. Just as I was about to leave, the staff member suddenly called me back and handed me a piece of fruit candy. May your wishes come true. I smiled at her reassuringly. After leaving, I found a nearby hotel. Once I dropped off my luggage, I was about to go out for a bite to eat when I unexpectedly ran into Emma, Michael, and their 2 kids. Michael was wearing a custom-tailored Armani suit, looking radiant and healthy, with no sign of a man who was about to die. Ryan, I saw you from a distance just now and thought it was you, Emma was saying. I couldn't possibly be you here. His gaze fell on the recruitment flyer in my hand, and a knowing smile spread across his face. Ryan, so you're out here looking for a job? But with your frail body, aren't you just going to make yourself suffer carrying bricks on a construction site? I didn't respond. The flyer had been handed to me by a young girl on the street just a moment ago. I had seen her handing out leaflets in the cold winter, so I casually took one from her. When I didn't say anything and just clenched the flyer in my hand, Michael's laugh grew even more mocking. If you'd said you were looking for a job earlier, maybe I could have helped out. We're all family, right? If you're doing well, Emma's future will be secured too, then I can rest easy. At this moment, my silence was basically an acceptance of what he had said. Emma, who had looked confused before, now had a completely changed expression. She frowned tightly, and her eyes filled with contempt as she looked at me. What's there to introduce? He chose to quit a good job as a doctor. Now, even if he starves on the streets, he doesn't deserve anyone's sympathy. Ryan, you really have no sense of responsibility. Do you think this will make me give up on the child? I looked at her familiar face, but at that moment, it felt so alien to me. I remembered when we first got married, when I considered resigning and changing careers due to internal competition at the hospital. Emma had simply held me in her arms, gently patting my back and whispered in my ear, "We are one. No matter what decision you make, I'll support you. Resigning isn't a big deal. I believe our future will shine, and husband, I'll always be by your side." But the person who promised to always be by my side now stood by, letting another man humiliate me. She seemed to have forgotten the words she once said to me, forgotten the deep feelings we once shared. Even my in-laws were shaking their heads in disappointment. I must have been blind before. How could I have trusted you to take care of my daughter's future happiness? Luckily, we're still alive. If we weren't here, I can't imagine how you would have tortured our daughter when we're gone. They went on exaggerating their words, and the passers-by started to glance over at us. My hands hanging by my sides slowly clenched into fists. Just as I was about to speak, Michael suddenly stepped forward. "We're going to take a family portrait, Ryan. Why don't you join us? In the future, I'll rely on you to help take care of Emma and the child." Emma immediately interrupted him with a disdainful sneer. "Look at his shabby appearance. If he's in the photo, it'll only lower our family's image." She then turned her head and headed toward the photography studio, urging Michael to follow quickly. "Since that's the case, we'll leave first. Don't let us delay you from finding a job." Michael gave me a meaningful pat on the shoulder. Watching him leave, I felt no emotion stirring inside me anymore. To outsiders, this was such a harmonious family. If this was what Emma wanted, then what was wrong with me stepping aside and letting go? Chapter 4. 3 days before my departure, I received a message from the director. He said that the expert I had asked him to contact for me was in the country, attending a forum, and he could help check my father-in-law's coronary artery disease. My father-in-law had always had heart problems, and several years ago, he was even rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. So while I was abroad, I had asked my colleagues to help gather some relevant case studies for me. After all, the bond of years was still there. Once I helped with this, I would owe them nothing. But when my father-in-law heard that I wanted to take him to the hospital, his face instantly darkened. "Why go to the hospital? Do you wish for me to drop dead? I had heart bypass surgery, and it was successful. What's there to check? There's a top heart specialist in the country today. You could go see him, maybe do some preventative measures for the future." Before I could finish, my father-in-law smashed his water cup at me. "You're the only one who knows how to sweet-talk. Do you think you can just call up a top expert as an unemployed person? All you do is boast. Do you remember Michael? He stayed up late just to help me book an appointment with an expert. Where were you then?" He kept comparing me to Michael, and his attitude made everything clear. No matter what I did, it was wrong. No matter how I tried, it would never measure up to Michael. When this thought crossed my mind, I could only bitterly smile. Since you don't want to go, forget it. Let it be that it was just me meddling in things that didn't concern me. Soon, it was the day of the baby's full moon celebration. I arrived late and saw the banquet hall filled with relatives whose names I couldn't even remember for a moment. I felt dazed. This scene was even grander than my own wedding with Emma. And right at the entrance to the banquet hall, they had posted a family portrait of the 5 of them. As for me, from beginning to end, I was just a joke. When relatives and friends saw me walk in, they immediately started whispering, and even without hearing them, I could guess what they were saying. Soon, my aunt grabbed my arm and greeted me. "Ryan, when did you come back? Emma didn't mention it at all. I heard you just came back from studying abroad and are about to be promoted to chief physician at the hospital. Your future looks so bright." I didn't respond, only nodding slightly in polite acknowledgement, but I could clearly see the disdain in their eyes. After all, I wasn't in the family portrait, and the person who had been with Emma the entire time wasn't me either. Someone nearby, who seemed to be in the know, pointed at the man feeding Emma dessert and asked, "Ryan, who's this guy? I didn't know you had a younger brother." I gave a faint smile. Emma's new husband. The aunts, who were all eager for gossip, immediately widened their eyes and then huddled together, whispering even more. Since Emma's family didn't care, why should I help them cover up the truth? At that moment, Emma walked up to the stage and took the microphone. "I'm so happy that everyone could join us for my son's full moon celebration. Before this, I never thought I would become a mother. I always felt like I couldn't play the role of a mother successfully. But the moment I heard my baby crying in the delivery room, I realized how powerful a mother's love really is." Her words were impassioned, as if she might cry from her own emotions. My aunt standing next to me yelled, "Let the father of the baby say a few words." "Where's the father?" The atmosphere in the banquet hall froze. All eyes shifted between Michael and me. The answer was obvious, but my aunt seemed to wait for Emma to admit it herself. I met Emma's gaze and slowly walked onto the stage. Her face wore a stunned look as I took the microphone from her hand. "What are you doing? I warn you that don't say anything reckless, or we're not done." Panic flashed in her eyes as she pulled at my sleeve and whispered a warning. But I didn't even glance at her, pulling my hand away. If she hadn't done anything wrong, why would she fear me knocking on the door of truth? At the same time, I spoke calmly into the microphone. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming to today's full moon celebration. The relatives here are the ones who saw Emma and me enter the marriage hall. After our wedding, I always cherished your blessings. But as you came in, you must have seen the family portrait at the door." Hearing this, Emma's face paled. She scowled and rushed toward me, trying to snatch the microphone. I swiftly dodged, gripping it tighter. To be honest, I was shocked when I saw it. But what shocked me more was that after a year abroad, I returned to find my childless wife already 8 months pregnant. I can't swallow this. Emma. Let's get a divorce. Chapter 5. I pulled out the divorce agreement prepared long ago and threw it forcefully at Emma's feet. Something I'd wanted to do since seeing her close to Michael. Emma's face turned ashen. She tried to take the microphone to control the chaos, but also reached to grab my arm, wanting to explain. "Ryan, why can't you just let it go? Haven't I told you that as long as you stop bringing it up, we 3 can live a good life together? 3 people?" In her version of a 3-person family, I was the unwelcome one. Honestly, I no longer wanted to deceive myself. "Sign it. There's nothing left to say between us. I wish you both happiness." Emma shook her head violently. "I won't sign. I don't agree to a divorce. Ryan, don't even think about it." When I first contacted the lawyer to draft the agreement, they told me I could ask Emma to leave with nothing. After all, she'd openly had a child with another man during our marriage, perfect evidence of infidelity. But gathering evidence and waiting for a court ruling would take too long. I was about to leave the country, and no amount of money mattered anymore. So I took only my rightful share of the property and entrusted the lawyer to donate the rest to Hope schools in mountainous regions. There was no more to discuss. I glanced at the chaotic scene and turned to leave. Emma, unwilling to accept it, handed the child to my father-in-law and chased after me. But before she could take many steps, Michael suddenly clutched his chest, gasping for air. "Emma, I feel terrible. Maybe it's the stress. I think I'm really close to dying." "Michael, are you all right? Hold on. I'll take you to the hospital now." She could only watch as I walked away, thinking she'd talk to me properly once this was over. As long as she didn't agree to divorce, our relationship wasn't truly over. With that, Emma felt a little calmer. The group rushed Michael to the hospital, but on the way, Emma's father's heart rate spiked from emotional stress. Emma nearly panicked, unsure who to comfort first. Just as her father was wheeled into the operating room, they ran into the director and the most authoritative heart specialist in the field. In that moment, Emma forgot everything else. She rushed forward and knelt before the director. "Please save my father. His condition is critical. A man named Michael helped me make an appointment with you before. Do you remember him?" The expert looked at Emma for a long while, then asked cautiously, "You're Ryan's wife, right? He contacted me through the director, hoping I could check on his father-in-law's condition. I saw your photo on his phone and praised him for his filial piety. But he told me a couple of days ago that the check was no longer necessary. So what's the situation now?" Hearing this, Emma froze, her eyes full of confusion and shock. They'd always believed I couldn't contact top doctors, assuming Michael had done it all. But now they realized they'd misunderstood me completely. The director pulled her aside, saying with regret, "I'm sorry, Miss Emma. We're about to board a flight to the US for a conference and can't participate in the surgery. But rest assured that our medical team is the city's best, and we'll do everything to save your father." After speaking, both left. Later, the director told me what happened. Emma knelt outside the operating room as her mother, filled with regret, scolded her. "I always said that even if Ryan was shameless, he wouldn't joke about this. You didn't believe me, and now look, if anything happens to your father, you'll be responsible." Her furious yelling made the baby in Emma's arms cry loudly. My mother-in-law angrily placed the child on a nearby plastic chair. "Stop crying. You cry all day if I didn't know better. I'd think I gave birth to a little emperor." But Emma no longer paid attention. She slowly pulled out her phone to call me. Perhaps now, I was the only one who could contact the expert for her father's surgery. By then, though, her call wouldn't go through. I was already on a plane heading abroad, resting my head against the window as the scenery receded until the plane lifted into the sky. I felt an odd unreality. From that moment on, I had no nationality, dedicated to the world. Chapter 6. After over 10 hours of flying, my companion and I were exhausted when we landed. The scene here starkly contrasted China's peace that filled with war and armed forces, where one wrong move could cost a life. As we rested in the car, our team leader explained the situation at our destination, handing each of us a gun. Saving lives is important, but more important than the mission is your own life. His words struck deep. Suddenly, I remembered the years married to Emma, when I treated her as my everything. That wasn't she once more important to me than my life. Soon, we reached our destination. On the muddy road, many wounded sat on the ground, arms and legs covered in bloody gashes. I learned the area had just been bombed. These injured, horrific as their wounds looked, were actually the least severe from the disaster. The operating room was full, so they'd been placed roadside. In that moment, I cast aside all other thoughts and rushed to bandage their wounds. This was just the beginning. Over the next few months, each day reshaped my worldview, but more importantly, it strengthened my resolve. I never regretted coming here or becoming a doctor without borders. Then one afternoon, a colleague rushed in, breathless. "Someone's looking for you." I thought it was another patient and started to step out, but the colleague added, "I think she's from back home." A woman. My step faltered. Emma's face immediately flashed through my mind. Before I could decline, Emma entered. "Ryan, it's really you." Her red eyes welled as she rushed to embrace me. I felt her tears on my neck and awkwardly pushed her away. I remembered that before boarding the plane, the lawyer had messaged. The divorce proceedings were officially filed, and regardless of Emma's agreement, our marriage would be annulled within a month. So why was she here? "Ryan, we've already divorced," I said. "You know, after you left, a lot happened. My father passed away." I froze, completely caught off guard. I hadn't expected Emma's father to die. "I'm so sorry. We didn't believe you. We thought you were lying." But the liar was Michael. He never found any top specialist. That my father's condition was ignored. If we'd listened to you and consulted an expert, maybe he'd still be alive. With that, Emma crouched down, covering her face as she cried uncontrollably. I stood unmoving, a tightness in my chest. During my month here, I'd witnessed countless and death separations, thinking I'd grown numb. But Emma's words still stirred something that, after all, her father had been kind to me once. I'm sorry, Ryan. I've been looking for you to apologize in person. I didn't know you left not without reason, but to become a doctor without borders. That's why I came so far. Please come back with me. This place is too dangerous. I've lost my father. I can't lose you too. Chapter 7. I shook my head. No, I'm not going back. As a doctor without borders, I no longer belong to any country. Where would I go back to? Unless the war ends and no place needs our help, I can't return home. Until then, this vast world, any place in it, is my home. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied, been so self-righteous, or had this child. Now I've paid the price. Michael is in bad shape. The doctor says he might not last. How am I supposed to live with the child? You promised to protect me for life. I forcefully pulled my hands from hers. We're divorced, Emma. How you live your life from here on is your business. I've got things to do. It's dangerous here that you should return home. After speaking, I turned to walk toward the camp. If you don't go back, I won't either. I'll stay here with you. Whenever you finish your mission, we can go back together. I didn't want to respond, but as I took a few steps, I heard Emma answer her phone, apparently a call from a hospital back home. What? Michael is dead? I'm coming back right now, that you all must wait for me. At that moment, 2 bombers flew overhead. Hearing the familiar engine roar, I instinctively threw Emma to the ground. Ryan, are you crazy? Her voice was drowned out by a nearby explosion. The ground shook, and bomb dust fell on us. I ignored her shouting, slowly raised my head to assess the surroundings, then scrambled to my feet. Emma, clearly terrified by the attack, remained frozen on the ground. I glanced at her and pulled her up. We need to take cover inside. I had long grown used to life-threatening bombings, but for her, this was all new. Her lips trembled. Am I going to die here? I pressed my lips together, silent for a moment, then replied, I'll have the team leader arrange for someone to send you back. Don't come back here again. Emma's face was covered in dust as she clenched her phone, saying nothing. Soon, the team leader sent a local in an old pickup truck to pick her up. Before she left, I slipped a few bills into the driver's hand and reminded him to ensure she reached the airport safely. Even though our relationship had ended, I couldn't stand by and let her be in danger. Emma didn't speak, still shocked by the attack. When I turned around, I only saw her quickly getting into the car. I faintly smiled, almost expecting her reaction. Back at the camp, a colleague gossiped. Is that beautiful woman your girlfriend? She came all the way here to find you. Seems like true love. Unlike my girlfriend, who broke up with me as soon as she heard I was going abroad for aid and found a younger guy instead. But hey, why didn't she come back with you? I silently put away my lunchbox and casually replied, She's not my girlfriend. She's my ex-wife. The colleague froze, then didn't press further. Chapter 8. 2 years later, an unexpected opportunity allowed me to return home. By then, my understanding of medicine had deepened, and this time, my girlfriend came with me. We'd met at the camp. She'd disfigured herself to protect me, and I'd promised to take care of her for life. Over time, my feelings for her grew, perhaps fate, seeing my loneliness, had brought this opportunity. This time, I wouldn't let go of this bond. When I arrived, the former director of the Central Hospital personally greeted me at the airport. He smiled with satisfaction. You've gotten darker and thinner. These past 2 years have been tough on you. His ordinary words made my heart skip a beat. I fought back tears and opened my arms to hug him. Just then, I saw Emma in the distance, holding a boy's hand. She must have learned of my return and come to the airport. In 2 short years, she'd changed a lot, that no longer bright and beautiful, but worn and tired. She didn't approach, just stood there expressionless, watching me. My girlfriend sensed something, took my hand, and intertwined our fingers. Is that your ex-wife? Should we go say hi? It looks like she has a lot to say. I withdrew my gaze and gently shook my head. There's nothing to say. From the moment I walked out of the full moon banquet, our paths had diverged. There was nothing left to discuss. I turned and got into the car. Not long after, I received a message from Emma. Over the past 2 years, she'd sent several, but since I'd used no domestic number, I'd never seen them. The message now contained only 3 words. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a long time, then deleted the message and blocked her. I threw the broken phone card out the window. casting away all past mistakes and misplaced affections.